Tonight, we need your help to solve two high-profile crimes that have dominated the headlines: carjacking and mobile phone mugging.
First, the woman whose children were abducted when her car was hijacked. Last Friday afternoon, Diane King was in Brixton in London dropping off a letter when two men jumped into her car, a blue Nissan Prairie SLX, and drove off with their two children, aged 4 and 13, on board. Diane, tell us what happened.
It was Friday. I went to drop a letter off at a friend's door. I posted it through, went back to my car. There was a bit of mess in the car. I tried to clear that away, had to go at David to do the same. Got back to the car, straightening the mat with my leg, just about to get in, when suddenly David shouted, "Mum, there's somebody trying to get the car." And I looked around suddenly, and before I knew it, there was someone else to my right, grabbing me out of the car. I just froze. I froze, and suddenly I saw David in and out, and the next thing I knew, the car was off, and I suddenly got my strength, and I ran and I ran and I ran as fast as I could, really trying to get
David,
my
you were
kids.
in the car at this point. What was going through your mind?
Well, I was actually scared, and I realised all I need to do is take out my sister and...
Because your sister, your 4-year-old sister, she was in the front, wasn't
yeah,
she?
she was at the front.
So what you got out, realised you couldn't get out without her, so you then got back in again, didn't you?
Yeah, I got back in because I tried to undo my sister's seatbelt, and I couldn't actually undo her seatbelt. So I jumped in, and the car was moving.
You must have been terrified.
Yes, I was scared.
I'm sure you were. And how did you get out in the end?
Well, we came to a junction where he had to manoeuvre if he wanted to go right or left. So at this point in time, he was slowing down, so I undone my sister's seatbelt and took my sister and just jumped.
You just jumped out of the car?
No, it was slowing down.
What a brave boy. And you, meanwhile, were chasing after it like the clappers, weren't you?
Absolutely. I've never ran so fast in my life. I just ran and ran and ran. I don't know where I got the strength from, but I ran. I needed to save my children. I didn't think about the car. It was all about who would want to take my children in broad daylight.
Well, thank God you're here to tell the tale. Let's see what the police have to say about it.
Well, Caroline, first of all, let me ask you why this car? I mean, it was a family car. It was a Nissan Prairie, H registered. It wasn't a Maserati or something. Why did they go for this?
That's exactly right, Nick. This was just an ordinary family car, although, as to the rest of us, it's their lifeline and their pride and joy. We're really unclear as to what the motivation was at this point.
OK, it's a Nissan Prairie, blue, I think.
That's right.
H822ASP.
That's right, Nick. It's nice and easy to remember for members of the public because it forms the word HASP. Any police officers that are watching may remember it as ASP.
All right, assuming it hasn't been abandoned somewhere or they haven't changed, if they've changed the registration, of course.
That's
now,
right.
Witnesses, lots of people will have seen this.
Yes, we understand that there were a lot of people. It happened last Friday at 5:15 in the evening in Doverfield Road in Brixton. Now, we know that there were a lot of people that were out on the streets.
And you want all of them to call us?
Absolutely.
And as they made off, the car crashed into lots of other cars. It was an extraordinary scene.
Yes, it did indeed. And one woman made herself known to the police at the time and said that her car had been crashed into by the car as it was driving away. We'd very much like to hear from her.
You didn't get her name or address?
Not at the time, because the police were actually looking for the vehicle at the time, so they weren't able to get it.
It was also a bit of a have-a-go-hero. There was someone in a Cherokee Jeep, something like this, described as probably African, who actually gave chase in his car for a bit.
Yes, that was a green Cherokee Jeep type of vehicle.
A 4x4 anyway.
That's right. The man driving it is described as a very smartly dressed, of African appearance, certainly a dark-skinned black man who turned the Jeep around and chased after the car. I'd love to hear from that man, as I feel he may have got a good look at the suspects. OK, well, if there's any way you can help, for heaven's sake, horrible crime, please give us a call. And incidentally, despite everything that we've been reading in the papers, there isn't the slightest evidence that carjacking has been increasing. This could be a bit like the Dangerous Dogs Act. It's just something that's hit the media. But this was a very nasty crime, and if you can help, call 0500 600 600 here in the studio, or the incident room on 020 8649 2231.
Street robbery is the only category of crime that is rising steeply, and the cause is mobile phones. Advice we've had from the police is treat your mobile as if you've got £100 in your hand. This next case happened on New Year's Day at 5:30 in the afternoon in Walthamstow, North East London.
Aisha! Aisha!
A 19-year-old woman is seriously ill.
She was stopped and told to hand over her mobile phone
After being shot in the head by a mugger.
was walking along Lea Bridge Road. It was quite cold. I was wearing my white jacket and all wrapped up, nice and warm.
I know, I can't believe we worked all those hours.
I've just been working like 2-3 weeks non-stop, and we had New Year's Day off.
It all?
I was planning to watch a film, Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum. It's supposed to be quite good Indian film of the year.
I want to see that for ages.
It's supposed to make everyone cry, so I'm looking forward to that.
Take care. Bye.
I didn't bother putting it into my pocket because it was just a couple of yards away from my friend Aisha's house. And then I saw a man coming right at me, so I thought I quickened my pace. I thought I'd make it into Aisha's house. I was so close to it, but I just didn't make it. You could see he was looking at the phone. He was just waiting for a chance to grab it. He was really hard-faced. He didn't show like any emotion. He had a really distinctive jaw. It was really pointed, and he had brown spots on the lower part of his face on either side.
What do you want? What do you want?
What do you mean, what do I want? Can't you see what I've got in my hand?
Aisha! Aisha!
I can remember his face after that. He was just like, I think he was just amazed that I sort of struggled back. And didn't realise I had been shot because there was no pain. And then I saw blood on my hand and blood on my white jacket.
Aisha! Aisha!
He was supposed to be a hard man. He just wanted something to boast about, probably. I've still got his face in my head that I don't think that will ever go away.
So this Ifit is likely to be very accurate. He's short, maybe 5'5" or 6, with these brown mole-like spots. Think of the face. Think back to when this happened on New Year's Day. Stop it happening again. 0500 600 600 or the inquiry room. That's 020 7230 2061.
Now some big breakthroughs since the last Crimewatch. An arrest in one of the most disturbing murder cases. 90-year-old Mabel Lation was killed at her home in Anglesey, and someone removed her heart. 2 pokers were laid in a cross beside her body.
Can you hear me?
After seeing the reconstruction and surrounding publicity, 2 people suggested a new line of inquiry, and as a direct result, a 17-year-old youth has been charged with Mrs. Lation's murder.
Another murder charge, this time helped by viewers in Grimsby. James Donson was mugged on his way back from a party and suffered head injuries. He assured his family he was all right, but died the following day. Media coverage, including Crimewatch, led several people to name a suspect, and a 22-year-old is now awaiting trial for robbery and murder.
And Crimewatch viewers have identified a victim. We showed photos of jewellery found on a badly burnt body dumped in Weybridge in Surrey. People called in to say the items belonged to Saeed Ali Ashkar Mahmoodi Askui, a 27-year-old Pakistani. A murder inquiry is underway.
Anthony Fenwick went on the run after being convicted of biting off another man's ear on the Isle of Sheppey in Kent. A Crimewatch viewer called in with an address in Eastbourne, and Fenwick was arrested there on New Year's Day. He's due to be sentenced soon.
And a conviction on a case we featured in September 2000, but which was solved independently of Crimewatch. 17-year-old Heather Tell was killed on a summer's evening in a local park in Staffordshire. Michael Chidgey was given life for her murder after his daughter confided in a work colleague that she feared her father was the killer.
Coming up later in the programme, the girl seen live and well on CCTV, but who was then found dead in the Thames. Britain's biggest smash and grab.
Hit the alarm.
And the distinctive jacket of a murderer. Who owns it?
Imagine a man who sits beside you on a train and says, "I'm bored, I'm going to batter the guard." This is the e-fit of the man who said it and did it. And 5 months on, the guard is still off work.
His attitude wasn't good when he got on the train. Seemed rather cocky.
Just checking where the front were.
As if he owned the place.
See your ticket. Oh, and do us a favour, mate. Watch the door next time.
All right.
Cheers, mate.
He kept moving from seat to seat.
Come here.
No,
He just seemed to be pestering the women.
I only want to give you a kiss.
I've got a boyfriend.
The young, attractive ones.
I'm Macca.
I don't think he liked the fact I was there. He wanted me to get in the back cabin and stay out of the way.
So when you getting off?
Gorton, how about you?
Manchester Piccadilly.
I'm bored. I'm going to go and batter the guard. Oi! You think I'm scum, don't you?
No, I don't. I don't think anything.
I didn't think he was going to do anything, but then I got the train quite a lot with people like that. It's so typical. He sits down next to me.
I can't stand the guard treating me like dirt. He thinks I'm scum. Do you think I'm a thug?
No.
He just thought he'd spent all day in the pub and he was just mouthing off a bit.
I'm really sorry, I'm not usually like this. Don't be scared.
Everything all right, love?
Yeah, thanks.
You think I'm scum, don't you?
He said he was up most mornings quite early.
I'm a joiner.
Right.
I work from 5:30 till 2:30.
Okay.
He said that he earned quite a lot of money.
It all goes on beer. Clothes for my girlfriend.
You're going home then?
Yeah.
And he said he was just going back to Gorton, where he lived.
What have you been up to?
I've been out since 9:30 this morning. And gloss up with my mates.
You stop his Gorton, mate.
I started to open my cab door to get out to do my door duties.
Come here!
I tried to hold him off, but he was a determined, younger and fitter man. I've never had to do that.
Come here! Come here!
They spent 2 hours stitching my left eye up. About 2 layers of stitching, roughly. I think it's 20 in each layer. I think whoever been on that train would probably got a thumping. Because a guy in the uniform's a target to some people.
The guard still has neck injuries 5 months on. Remember the details. He called himself Macca. He said he was a joiner who worked in the mornings and lives in Gorton. And last September, on a Sunday, he was drinking with some mates in Glossop. Well, he could have been lying, but if not, easy, surely. Tell us his name and address, please. 0500 600 600. This guy is a menace. You'd also call the instant room on 0121 654 4472.
You never know where putting a CCTV camera is going to get a good result. A security company in Woking had the good sense to cover their back door. These two have no idea they're being filmed. First they try throwing stones, then a brick, and then finally they use a drain cover. They took thousands of pounds worth of laptop computers. Staff at a Cambridge conference centre were preparing to give a presentation when the building's fire alarm went off. When they left the building to get to safety, this man came in and helped himself. And some very clear pictures of this man as he brandishes a gun at a cashier in a Northampton building society. And he's been busy because here he is again, threatening 2 tellers in Leicester. Who is he?
We often get approached by the police wanting us to appeal on a prostitute murder. These women are so vulnerable. And sadly, these cases are some of the hardest to solve. Understandably, clients can be reluctant to come forward. But I hope this will persuade you.
I'd heard on the radio that a body had been found. I knew it was one of the girls, but but it was a complete shock to find out that it was Nikki that had been murdered.
Life for Nikki Higgins was uneventful until she was 18, when her friends got her into drugs, which led her into prostitution.
Is there any business?
I manage the Women's Project that's based in Stoke-on-Trent, that's funded to work with young women involved in street prostitution. Nikki, she was always confident that this wasn't where she was always going to be. No matter how cold she was, how wet, how hungry, she was always pleasant, always polite. She had a lovely sense of humour and she was well liked, and I've never heard anybody have a bad word to say about her.
Tonight is almost the anniversary of Nikki's death. Here she's in an Esso garage in Stoke-on-Trent before going to her usual patch in Century Street.
Hi, Nick. Hiya. Are you all right? Fine. Is it busy tonight?
She was like a working friend, as like both of us worked across from each other on the streets. She always used to look out for me, as I used to look out for her when I could. It was a quiet night. Nikki got picked up by somebody and I watched her go off in a car. Every time you get into a car, you don't know if this person's going to be nice or if he's going to be funny. So it's just a risk you always take if that's in the situation that you're in. I saw her come back, and then I had a punter who walked to me and we walked around the corner, and I never saw her again then.
But around that time, CCTV picked up this dark blue or black car circling Century Street. A witness saw it stop at Nikki's patch and is certain the driver talked to her. We think the number ended in NBY. The car went up Marsh Street, and 1 year on, we need to find it.
Seeing her grow up from a tiny little baby into womanhood and this beautiful young girl that she was, you just don't expect that things like this can happen to your family. She was my niece, and nobody deserves to die in the way that she was brutally murdered.
Carl, it's a year Monday, in fact, a year last Monday that Nicola was murdered. Why are you reappealing now?
Well, in particular, I have some new information which I wish to share with the public. Firstly, I have found on Nicola's body was a tremendous amount of bitumen shards, which I believe comes from the roofing industry. Is that connected to a location she was taken to, a roofer's yard, premises where roofing work was being undertaken, or even connected with the murderer himself? Is it in his car? Is he in the roofing trade? So that's in particular one thing that I want to appeal to there.
And talking of the car, we saw it in the film there on CCTV. What more can you tell us about it?
Well, as was said, it's a number taken similar to E or F prefix and ending in MBY, similar to that. But in particular, and why I'm interested in this car, is that we have a witness who can say that Nikki was speaking to the driver of this car through the window. And I believe it's the last car that Nikki got into that night.
Now, the people you want to hear from in particular, all this time on now, are basically it's punters. It's clients of Nicola's. Now, what can you say to them if they're reluctant to come forward?
Well, I can say, first of all, that I need them to come forward to either eliminate them from the inquiry, or in particular if they've got details about Nikki's last movements or information about this case. But I urge them to get in contact with me. I'm not in the business of telling their friends and family. I need that information.
So you will treat them in confidence?
Certainly will, yes.
There are bits of clothing of Nicola's that you want to get hold of as well?
Yes, we're still missing a short lady's either dark brown or black coat, and also a distinctive one white night training shoe with a red tick on the side, and that's still outstanding.
And DNA?
We have DNA, which together with the other evidence that we have in this case, I believe makes a very strong chance that we can identify the offender. But I just need someone to make that one call.
OK, well, you heard it there. If you, Nicola, if you were a client of Nicola's, the police aren't interested in spilling the beans on your private life. They will treat your calls in confidence. Call us here or the incident room on 01785 234 995.
Our appeals so far have been fairly focused, so we're not looking for volume of call tonight, we're looking for really good quality. So far, we haven't got the critical call we wanted on that hijack of the family car in Brixton, that one that made so much in the papers, so many headlines. There was the Nissan Prairie. Incidentally, we have had one very similar. It's turned up in Norfolk. Someone says he's seen it there with the registration H something 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 ASP. Well, we know the missing one is H822 ASP. Incidentally, David, who's a 13-year-old who found himself with his little sister trapped in the car as the hijackers went on, he described one of the hijackers as a Craig David lookalike, about 25, he thinks, with a thick neck, broad shoulders, about 25 years of age. Now, don't forget, you could also email us about any of tonight's cases at Crimewatch UK at the BBC. That's cwuk@bbc.co.uk. And all the incident room numbers, you can find those on CFAX on page 621. Now, a dramatic case now solved independently of Crimewatch. Our coverage at the time was deliberately fairly low-key, but the crime was particularly worrying. In fact, the prosecution is appealing because they think that the sentence is too low and represents a danger to the public. Now, this is a homemade bomb, one of several, all booby-trapped so that anyone could have set them off. They're among the most sophisticated homemade devices ever seen. The first device was found in Gloucestershire, flanked by boards to measure the impact of the explosion. 3 days later, and quite by chance, a cache of 8 more bombs was discovered in Oxfordshire. Did the guy really want to kill people? Is he a psychopath, or is he just really trying to prove himself?
It's difficult to say. I mean, we just don't know. But what we do know, as you said, it's wholly unique. A lot of time's been spent. He's been most meticulous. So we think the sort of person who would have been involved in this is somebody who's got technical skills, possibly a craftsman, a modeller, more likely to be somebody who's got weapons or explosives training, but certainly a good knowledge of electronics.
We had 200 calls to the studio, but eventually components of the bomb were traced to Jonathan Wilkes, a computer software specialist and, to the surprise of detectives, a serving magistrate. It's never become clear what his motives really were. He said he was planning suicide, but why 9 bombs? Why booby-trapped? Why filled with shrapnel that could kill dozens of passers-by? Judge Peter Crawford sentenced Jonathan Wilkes to 5 years, which means that unless the prosecution appeal succeeds, Britain's most dangerous bomb maker could be out in 2 years' time.
Still to come, Britain's biggest smash and grab, which may have gained the robbers more than they can handle. The woman who was attacked in a bar for no reason. Two men planning rape caught on CCTV.
Dramatic pictures of the murder of Rajnikant Pandya, the owner of an off-licence in Sutton, Surrey. Towards the end of last year, this gunman burst in, threatened Rajnikant and then shot him twice. His wife and daughters came downstairs and found him dying. Do you recognise this motif? We know that it's the logo of the Chicago White Sox baseball team, and only a limited number of these jackets have been sold in Britain. So, who comes from the South London area and had a jacket like this? Not long after Rajnikant was murdered, we recovered a similar one in Tulse Hill. It could have been a different jacket, but we just need to know. There's a £10,000 reward, so if you know anything, please call us here now, 0500 600 600. Now, it was only luck in this next case that narrowly avoided terrible injuries. Last October, someone planted a bomb in the Lady Margaret pub in Southall, West London. A homemade device containing hundreds of nails. It was placed just inside the entrance where it exploded, causing such an impact that part of the building was nearly destroyed. Although the pub was packed, fortunately nobody was close by as the bomb went off. There's a £5,000 reward. If you know anything about it, please call us now before it happens again with far worse results. 0500 600 600.
Next, a reconstruction of the biggest smash and grab ever. This was the Saturday before New Year at a jeweller's in London's West End.
Everyone in the situation reacts differently. We weren't brave. No one was brave. I don't know how I'm going to react again in another situation like that.
Arranged to have them delivered to you.
So when would you like them? We have a very reliable parcel service.
And it sounded like they were coming through the front door with armed guns, and you always fear the worst. Then, after the second blow, you realised that they were smashing our front window.
Hit the alarm!
And by the time we were at the front door and ready to chase them, they'd got a few yards on us. There was quite a lot of noise. People had actually seen them do it and were actually shouting and pointing in the direction they were running. It's just a reaction. You chase these people. Why should they get away with it?
Go on ahead! Try and cut them off!
We split up. He ran down the arcade after them, shouting at them, and I tried to cut them off further down.
We're on to you!
All you're thinking of is trying to stop them. It's very hard when you're running and seeing people in the way.
Where?
We couldn't close them down, I'm afraid. I thought, bloody hell, I'm getting old.
Well, the thieves cleared out the whole window, worth, at a retail price, something like £4 million. But now it's hot, well, it's worth a fraction of that, and every single gem can be traced, even if the jewellery is broken up. In fact, the reward is so big, it's a huge proportion of the underworld value of the stones. In fact, it's £100,000. Call us here, or call the Instant Room on 0208 247 7931.
2 convictions because of your calls. Do you remember this character having a cigarette before going in to commit an armed robbery in Preston? He was actually watching Crimewatch that night and tried to block the TV so his girlfriend wouldn't recognise him. To no avail, though, a few others saw it and called to name him as Graham Wright. He was arrested in Southport 2 days later and is now serving 8 years in prison for 6 armed robberies. Richard Appiah was wanted for fraud when we showed his face last November. Several people called in to say he was working in a hotel in Aberdeen. Within hours of the programme, he was arrested and last month was sentenced to a year for 12 fraud-related offences. Now, the City of London, the great financial capital where, if you think of crime at all, you'd probably think of insider trading or fraud. But what happened on Friday the 2nd of November was totally unexpected. The Square Mile used to close when the offices emptied. But now there's a thriving nightlife.
A good friend of mine was leaving work to go travelling around the world, and we were just going to be celebrating.
But a stranger kept butting in. Who was the over-familiar dancer with strawberry blonde hair?
It was a bit too tactile, a bit too close for comfort.
Get out of it.
I thought this is going to sort of really start to escalate a bit out of control. I feel that I am the type of person that is able to hopefully calm the situation down.
Calm down, we don't need trouble. It's just not worth it, is it?
This man was in Barmed in Mincing Lane on Friday the 2nd of November. We don't know that he's the attacker. In fact, he hung around to make a mobile phone call. Did he call you? Here he is again. He's really easy to identify. The victim had been stabbed in the intestine with an 8-inch long, thin blade. She was saved by surgery, but will always bear the scar.
I do view things now a lot differently. I don't tend to be spontaneous like I used to be. Every single day that I look at myself in the mirror or look down, I have a constant reminder of this particular night, which I will live with for the rest of my life.
You know, she spent 3 days in intensive care after that attack. We need to find this man. Call us here or the instant room on 020 7601 2222.
This man is suspected of using a stolen credit card at 4 banks in County Durham and Cleveland. He was finally rumbled in Bishop Auckland and had to leave the car behind. And much the same with these two in Dorset. They were using a stolen credit card to buy a video camera. We also know the card was used in other shops in Poole. The two were driving a black Saab convertible. Who are they? 0500 600 600. Been offered a cigarette lately? If it was one of these, it could make you £5 if you call us. 56,000 packets of Vogue cigarettes were stolen from a freight container in Middlesbrough. You can't miss them because the health warning is in Japanese. Now, I don't need to know about packets with an English health warning, only Japanese. 0500 600 600.
There's a nightclub called Squires in Preston in Lancashire where Monday night is student night. And the next appeal is focused very much on students, but also the Asian community in Deepdale.
97.4 Rock FM News.
Detectives are hunting 2 men after a teenager was attacked on her way home. The 19-year-old Asian girl was forced into Moore Park and raped.
This 19-year-old girl has been left feeling ashamed, insulted and dirty by the way in which these 2 lads have treated her. They took advantage of her and they took advantage of the trust that she put in them. The girl went out that evening. She'd had a slight disagreement with her boyfriend and for that reason felt she wanted to go and pick herself up. She went into the local nightclub Squires on a Monday, which was predominantly student night. She stayed there until the club closed, went to the cloakroom to get her coat, and while she's in the queue she actually noticed 2 lads that she'd seen earlier inside the club, and I think perhaps were paying her a bit more attention than perhaps she would have liked. And she looked over and she saw the same 2 lads standing watching her. They were outside Headlines, the hairdressers there. I think she reasoned with herself they could have been waiting for a taxi. She crossed over the road and started walking down Church Street. As she's walking down there, the boys then cross over. They were clearly following her. And following her every move down Church Street, past Manchester Road and towards Ringway. When she's approached the prison, the 2 lads actually caught up with her. They befriended her. They gained her trust. She was an Asian female. The 2 lads themselves were Asian. I think she describes them actually as being Pakistani. They had broken English accents. They seem to have a lot in common in relation to religion and beliefs and education. Once they reached the top of Blackpool Road, they turned into there. So she was grabbed from behind by one of the lads and dragged into Moore Park, where she was raped. The lads then ran away from the park down Deepdale Road as if they were going back in towards the town centre. Our witness describes them as being covered from head to foot in mud. He keeps his eye on them and watches them turn left into St Stephen's Road.
For repellent crime, let me just recap. Remember, both in their early to mid-20s, they're both Asian, probably students, as I say, and probably local to Deepdale. One had a pale patch of skin under his right cheekbone. The other wore a dark jacket with white stripes down the front and down the arms. And as you've heard, they were both covered in mud one night 4 months ago, and they would have had to have someone wash that off for them, I suspect, off their clothing. There's DNA, so names can be eliminated from the inquiry very easily. So if there's any way that you can help, just give us a call, 01772 209 259. And if you've been a victim of any sort of crime and you want to speak to somebody, the victim support line is open, and that's on 0845 30 30900.
10 days ago, the body of a young woman was taken out of the River Thames near the Millennium Bridge in London. She was identified as 20-year-old Tang Shi, known as Yumi to her friends, a Chinese student who'd spent the previous night out clubbing. Tony, what we know about Tang Shi is she was at the Ministry of Sound in Elephant Castle in southeast London. She left at, what, 10 to 6 on Sunday morning. Then what happened?
Well, from CCTV, we've managed to find that she walked north, Southwark Bridge Road towards Southwark Bridge. She's then changed the route ever so slightly, and we've next got her walking north on Borough High Street towards London Bridge. The last time we catch her on CCTV is on Borough High Street, still heading towards London Bridge, just beyond the tube station. And we know at some stage she's gone west again towards Southwark and Blackfriars Bridge by virtue of where she was found in the tide, but we haven't picked her up on the CCTV.
And there are so many cameras in that part of London that if she had continued walking, you would have picked her up. So what do you think happened?
We almost certainly would have picked up. There's a very outside chance she continued walking, but there's a very strong possibility she's been picked up by a vehicle, a car, a taxi, or maybe even gotten on a bus.
And what do you know about how she ended up in the river?
Well, we really don't know anything. That's really what we're trying to find out. I mean, three obvious possibilities. She could have fallen, she could have pushed, or she could have jumped in. It's very unlikely she's fallen in because there are walls and barriers and railings to stop people falling in.
Any likelihood that she would have jumped in?
Well, clearly suicide's a possibility, but everybody's described her as a happy girl, an outgoing girl. She had a new boyfriend, she'd been out with friends that evening, they had a nice evening. There's no signs of depression. There's not really a lot of signs that you'd normally associate with suicide.
What she was wearing, what we saw her wearing on CCTV, that was pretty distinctive, wasn't it?
Yeah, she was very distinctive. Although it was 6 o'clock in the morning, so it was still dark, she was wearing sunglasses. She was wearing a black blouse and black trousers, but the trousers were distinctive. They had holes in the knees, but these were a design feature. And her jacket, it was a very bright yellow or a lime green. When we've last seen her on the CCTV, she was carrying it, but it was so bright it would be distinctive.
OK, so what we're looking for is anyone who can fill in the gaps. We're talking about the Sunday before last, when she disappeared at something like 6 in the morning on Sunday morning by Southwark Bridge. Tang Shi's mother, incidentally, flew in from China yesterday, and she was her only child, so help her tonight. Call 020 7601 2736.
Still to come, the man who insists he's not Arnold Schwarzenegger, come Nick Faldo, the publican, who fought back.
Give us the money!
Who was the woman who went off with the dying man's mobile phone? 8 faces, all wanted by different forces. Call and tell us where they are tonight.
Bletchley in Buckinghamshire is famous for its Enigma code breakers who broke the German secret message system in World War II. It has another enigma now. See if you can help to solve it. Bletchley Co-op at 6 a.m. on a Saturday 3 months ago, and staff arrived for work. They found that overnight there'd been a minor break-in.
I phoned the police to report the break-in, and then I phoned the manager.
But in the boiler room, 2 men were lying in wait. As soon as the manager was in his office, the ambushers emerged and sneaked towards him with a gun. Then, with takings from the safe, they scurried out into the car park, followed quickly by the manager, now in a state of shock.
He came running through into the shop, shouting, saying that he'd been held up and they'd had a gun.
A green Austin Montego Countryman estate was seen outside the co-op just before midnight the night before. If you know about the car, give us a call. They're not great pictures, but if you know them, they're good enough. A white man and an Asian. The white, exceptionally tall, is balding. The Asian is receding. 0500 600 600. If you know anything, if you can help, don't just sit there. Pick up the phone. Call here or the incident room on 01908 686 344.
The hardest crimes to solve are where there seems to be no motive, and nobody can understand what happened to Michael Cabey.
Never dreamt in a million years that my son would have been taken away from me.
It happened in Clapton in East London on a summer's Sunday afternoon. But why Michael Cabey?
What's happened last night, man? Where was you last night?
Michael had never been in trouble. He'd started as a professional footballer and after an injury took a job at Sainsbury's. Each Sunday he and his mates would meet at the corner of Northwold Road and Rossington Street and sit around and chat.
They talk about girls, they talk about football. They just sit there and have a good old laugh. They've been doing that from ever since I can remember.
If what happened next was planned, well, it wouldn't be hard to find Michael. He and his mates always sat on the same wall. They noticed a dark-coloured Ford Fiesta, which was driving back and forth.
There's a car again, man, look. What's going on?
Eventually, it turned into Rossington Street, and the passenger looked straight at Michael.
Do you know him?
Michael was hit 4 times and died at the scene. The gun was a black-coloured automatic with a red light shining from it. The dark Fiesta turned and drove back past Michael and his friends. The registration was R160 ULD. What happened next adds a bizarre twist to the murder. As Michael lay dying, a woman stole his mobile phone.
I had 2 lovely kids, 2 wonderful kids, and my son is not here. It's a tragedy for me, knowing that my son was a respectable person and a loving person, and what a waste of my son's life.
Julian, he did seem to be respectable. This was more than a tragedy. I mean, it remains a real mystery to you.
It does indeed. On the face of it, it's got all the hallmarks of being a gangland organised killing, but Michael, as far as we're aware, was not involved in anything of that nature. We've got no idea why this murder took place.
This car that was involved, this Ford Fiesta R160 ULD, now you know quite a bit about that car. It's not been stolen.
No, it's not stolen as far as we can gather. The car was seen indeed the day later in Stoke Newington area, and all the information we have is that the car may well still be around. It may be outside someone's house or in a garage.
It seems to be a sort of pool car used by lots of people, probably uninsured, and just sort of shared out among people.
Yeah, shared out amongst various gangs of youths and used for whatever purpose they...
I'm not sure what colour it is, dark green, dark blue, black, something like that. Dark-coloured Ford Fiesta R160 ULD. Now, we've got something wrong in that reconstruction, because we since know that the one we thought might have stolen that mobile phone was actually handed it by one of the witnesses. Now, just tell us what happened.
At the time of the incident, a white woman came to help and picked up the mobile phone. She was approached by a black lady that we saw in the film clip and was asked for the phone, and the white woman indeed asked her if she was a friend of Michael's, to which she said she was. So she handed over the phone in good faith.
Now, we've no reason to believe she was involved with any crime, so, but you badly need to talk to her. Why?
Well, the phone may well lead us, give us vital evidence. I'm not looking at this lady in any way in a criminal way at all. I just want her to return the mobile phone in order we can investigate this murder.
You are so concerned about it. The Metropolitan Police itself has put up a reward. Tell us about that.
Yes, the Metropolitan Police has put up £10,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of the people responsible. It's quite a substantial sum of money. I think for the way this murder took place, and in particular the putting the gun on the side, it's
rather amateurish on the side, macho but
indeed,
amateurish.
I think people will talk about this, and if these people are talking about this murder, then I would like to hear about it.
OK, well, someone watching must know what this is about. Please don't hope someone else is going to call in a ring. If you suspect or you know anything about this, please give us a ring. And remember that £10,000 reward. And where is that Ford Fiesta R160 ULD? Is it outside your home? Call here or call the incident room on 020 8 785 8056.
Next, some faces you might know. Lynn Wright failed to turn up at court last year on a charge of defrauding family and friends. Is she in the northwest of England? Give us a call. This man used to be in Lancashire but could be anywhere tonight. He's Matthew Pike, or maybe Peters, and we want to talk to him about the rape of a 13-year-old girl last September. Terry Peterson, or Nutman, was sentenced in his absence to 9 years for major drug crimes. He's a big guy at 6'3". Is he now dealing in your area? Manchester police are looking for Aureen Roberts after a shooting last September in which the victim was lucky to survive. If you see Aureen Roberts, don't approach him, just give us a ring. 0500 600 600.
And Sean White used to work servicing gaming machines, and we now suspect he's putting money into his own pocket, duping pubs and clubs that he's a legitimate engineer. We need to find him urgently. Sivaraja Sivakaran has skipped bail after being charged with attempted rape in High Wycombe. He should have stood trial in Aylesbury, but never turned up. He goes by the nicknames Civvy or Corby. And another no-show at court. Stephen Rowland was due to appear at Teesside on drugs and firearm charges, but he hasn't been seen since 1999. He might now be in London. David Rogers, also known as David Brannigan, pleaded guilty to a serious attack on his ex-partner, but he never turned up for sentencing. Police at Barry in South Wales are very keen to see justice done, so tell us where he is.
In this next case, a 16-year-old girl was raped and badly beaten around the head. She was in a coma for a month and has permanently lost her sense of taste and smell. But almost as bad, she lost her memory. For a time, she forgot 5 years of her life and could scarcely remember her sister. It's now a year on, and for her, the attack is still a blank. She and her family are praying that tonight someone will fill in the gaps.
It was early evening on Sunday, the 10th of December. The girl had used the cash point machine in the
Preston today in their search for clues as the girl fights for
left
her
in a
life
coma for weeks. She's now recovered and spoken to the police for the first time.
I was glad she didn't remember. What I remembered was bad enough.
First, do you know the Spa shop in Welland Road in Peterborough? Were you there about a year ago? Did you see a teenage girl go to the cash machine?
She popped out about 6 o'clock to go down to the local shop to get some money out for that night and for work the next day.
No one seemed to follow her, as at about 6:30 p.m. on a Sunday evening, she headed home to the Crabtree estate.
She'd done that walk since she was 11. That is the way to the school and to the shop. It never bothered her.
Halfway home is the underpass that goes beneath the A47. And what happens next goes blank.
Seems he's just run up behind her, hit her, never gave her the chance to run out. She'd got a neck brace on and her face and was so swollen. Her eyes was bruised. Her face was scratched. Her lovely soft blonde hair was just stiff and with dark red blood.
The motive was rape, but such violence was used the charge will be attempted murder. Who was the man seen shortly before the attack? Possibly mixed race, late teens with dark brown hair in a curtain style, and almost certainly he lives not far away. And who was the man who approached 2 girls nearby and then headed for the underpass around the time of the attack?
You haven't seen a bunch of lads, have you? You sure?
He's light-skinned, Afro-Caribbean, short hair, possibly pulled into ringlets, and aged 16 to maybe 20. We're not looking for hundreds of calls, we're looking for that one good call. Someone must know who did this. There's a £10,000 reward and there's DNA, so suspects can easily be eliminated. If you have your suspicions, or if you know who's responsible, put an end to this and call us now. 0500 600 600 or the incident room, that's on 01733 424242. And on this or any other crime, you can call Crime Stoppers anonymously if you want on 0800 555 111.
Let me take you back to the night before New Year's Eve, which is usually a quiet one, or so it seemed in Massam, the Yorkshire brewing town, just north of Ripon.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
I decided we're going to be too busy the night after to be drinking and socialising, so we'd have a few drinks after normal time. I suppose it was going to be our New Year's Eve.
Oh, absolutely fantastic, mate. Tell you, the women. Oh, take the shed house. Yeah?
To get myself down there. Have you got any fags at all?
No, sorry, mate.
You got any change for the fag machine?
No, all out.
have to go upstairs and get some change then. I'll put some decent music on.
Yeah, no problem.
When I reached the top of the fire escape and I heard the demand for money,
Give us the money.
I just assumed it was my friend larking around.
Give us the money!
I turned round and it wasn't. I opened the door and picked up the nearest thing to hand. I think the adrenaline was that high. I didn't realise I had been shot. It wasn't until I looked down and saw the blood coming out. At that point, I panicked.
I've been shot.
Sit down. Put it up in the air.
The bullet passed through my left forearm. It's been lucky. It didn't hit a bone, didn't hit an artery or a ligament. The term "have a go hero" has been used in local Preston. I don't like that term. I don't think it's just.
Okay.
It wasn't heroic. It was more fear. It was more self-defence than running around like a cross between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Nick Faldo.
It was fairly heroic, and actually, it sounds like he did a lot of damage with that golf club.
That's right, Nick. When we found it, it is a large 3-wood, very heavy driver golf club. And we think that it's hit him on the right-hand side of the body.
Enough to fracture or break an arm or a rib or something like that?
Yes, you saw from the reconstruction, it was a very heavy blow that the man received, and it was somewhere between the shoulder area and the waist.
So around New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, the guy hit might well have gone to a doctor and nurse seeking medical attention.
That's right, he may well have gone to a hospital, casualty department, with a broken arm or a broken rib, or certainly severely bruised.
Medical ethics, incidentally, say that public safety's got to come first. It actually overrides the privacy of the patient. So here's a guy with a gun, and this is very, very serious. And there's more to come, as we'll show in a moment. They had Teesside accents, at least one of them who spoke, you'd think had a Teesside accent.
Yeah, that's right. Chris told us that he recognised the accent as being Teesside. He has a friend that comes from Teesside, and we are looking possibly at Middlesbrough, Stockton, Darlington, Thornaby, South Bank, that side of Cleveland.
And there's a reward.
There is a reward. I've been on the programme twice now, and I've had success twice. So tonight I'm looking for a hat-trick, and Chris's parents are putting up a reward of £5,000, leading to the arrest and the conviction of these people.
Well, £5,000, I mean, one wouldn't need a reward for this. These guys need to be caught anyway, but if you're looking for the reward, here's an easy way to get it. And incidentally, there's been at least one other similar offence. This we're going to show you now is the second, which happened 25 miles away in Blubberhouses just over 2 weeks later.
All right, no problem. Yeah. What can I get?
Can I have a packet of cheese and onion crisps?
You can indeed. There you go. Yeah, thanks very much. I'm done for the night. You're done for the night? Yeah, finished. All right. Change. See you tomorrow. Cheers.
That R24, we don't know it was a legitimate registration, but anyway, can you link that dark metallic car with this man? The victim's family, as you've heard, have put up a £5,000 reward. Please call us here, or 01 423 539 465.
Well, the phone's been pretty busy tonight, and let's get an update on the case we saw at the beginning of the programme. The girl who was shot so shockingly, just for her mobile phone. Stuart, what kind of calls have we had in?
Well, so far this evening, it's been a fairly slow response, but we have had a number of calls. One in particular was a man of very similar description as of the EFIT, seen in Walthamstow, close by to where the actual shooting took place on New Year's Day.
Let's just remind ourselves then, what did this man look like?
He was quite distinctive in as much as he had marks on the side of his face. There could be moles, there could be spots. He was approximately 5'6" tall, aged 22 to 25. He was wearing a Ali G type hat that was made of a shiny material, and he had a large bracelet on his right wrist, silver in colour.
OK, well, let's just remind people here, we're talking about New Year's Day, 5:30 in the afternoon, Walthamstow, the Lee Bridge Road. We certainly need to find this man. Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you.
CCTV has played a big part in this evening's programme, so here's a quick look back at some of tonight's images. The £4 million smash and grab.
Sounded like they were coming through the front door.
Hit the alarm.
Do you recognise the robbers running down Bond Street in central London? Who killed Nicola Higgins? We need to trace a man driving this dark car similar to a Vauxhall Carlton in Stoke-on-Trent. The murderer with a distinctive jacket. Tell us who owns it. The city worker stabbed in a London bar. A fellow clubber may have information. And two men planning rape caught on camera. I have to say I'm rather upset we haven't had many calls on the carjacking that happened in Brixton last Friday. It made a huge number of headlines, and perhaps a lot of people with information have already called into the police, but we needed more witnesses, and in particular we're looking for a guy who was driving a Jeep. Now, what do you make of this call we've had here? Caroline Goods, the officer in charge. This is a guy who's rung in saying, look, what if the chap driving a Jeep who chased after the carjackers was an illegal immigrant?
All I'm interested, Nick, is catching the people that have stolen Diane's car. I know there are all sorts of reasons that people wouldn't normally assist police, but I would urge them to come forward on this. I won't be asking questions about anything other than the offence.
Right.
I'd really like to hear from that man and anyone else that was there.
OK, you've heard that from the officer herself. The only thing she's going to ask about is the actual offence itself.
Our phone lines are open until midnight tonight, and again from 7:30 tomorrow morning until midnight. We'll be back at 10:35 with the Crimewatch update.
Finally, surprise, surprise, despite all the stuff we've been reading in the headlines, almost all categories of crime are falling. Now, those aren't just the police statistics, those are going down as well. They're what real people actually experience and say when asked whether they've been burgled or attacked or anything else. In the latest figures, people reported 12% fewer crimes than in the year before. So we mean it when we say don't have nightmares, do sleep well. Have a great evening. If you're not going to bed, if you are, good night.
Good night.